Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
Lord, we thank you for this new day,
Herr, wir danken dir für diesen neuen Tag
and we thank you for the freedom to still come together and to pray and worship together.
Wir danken dir, dass wir immer noch die Freiheit haben, hier zusammenzukommen und zu beten und anzubeten.
And we thank you for your promise to give us that golden oil.
Und wir danken dir für die Verheißung, uns das goldene Öl zu geben.
So please forgive us our sins.
Und bitte vergib uns unsere Sünde
Wash us by the blood of Jesus.
und wasche uns durch das Blut Christi.
Please pour the golden oil now into our lamps through the 2 witnesses.
Und bitte gieße das goldene Öl in unsere Lampen durch die 2 Zeugen.
And help us to receive it with joy and gladness.
Und hilf uns, das mit Freude zu erhalten.
And please help us to understand it.
Und hilf uns, dass wir es verstehen.
We would be able to connect it with all the things that you've revealed to us thus far.
Und dass wir in der Lage sind, das zu verbinden mit all den Dingen, die du uns bis jetzt offenbart hast.
And that it would do its work of sanctifying our wicked hearts.
Und dass es sein Werk tut, um unsere bösen Herzen zu heiligen.
Please bless my brother Mark as he lays out your word.
Bitte segne meinen Bruder Mark, wenn er dein Wort auslegt.
My sister Lucia as she translates.
Meine Schwester Lucia, wenn sie übersetzt.
Please bless the live stream and all who are watching.
Und bitte segne den Livestream und alle, die zuschauen.
And all of us here.
Und alle uns hier.
We invite your presence.
Und wir laden deine Gegenwart ein.
We thank you in Jesus' name.
Und danken dir in Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so yesterday okay, all right. Okay, so anyway, yesterday
Also gestern,
we were looking at Genesis 19,
da haben wir uns 1. Mose 19 angeschaut.
and we were looking at this relationship between coming out of Egypt and coming out of Sodom.
Und da haben wir uns den Zusammenhang zwischen dem Herauskommen aus Ägypten und dem Herauskommen aus Sodom angeschaut.
Okay, and I have this pattern here of these when the lamb is selected on the 10th day.
Und wir hatten dieses Muster hier, also wo das Lamm am 10. Tag ausgewählt wird.
Okay, and they were to keep it for 5 days, and on the 5th day at even, they were to slay the lamb.
Und sie sollten es für 5 Tage aufbewahren und dann am 5. Tag sollten sie es am Abend schlachten.
Okay, and this is this Passover day,
Und
right?
das war dieser Passatag.
And Passover day has got many different aspects in it that we have to understand.
Und der Passatag, der hat viele Aspekte enthalten, die wir verstehen müssen.
But basically, it's parallel to the cross that goes from the 3rd to the 9th hour.
Aber das ist eigentlich eine Parallele zum Kreuz, was von der 3. Stunde bis zur 9. Stunde geht.
Okay, and we were looking at this in relation to the 2 witnesses that came to Sodom at even.
Und wir haben uns das in Bezug zu den 2 Zeugen angeschaut, die zu Sodom am Abend gekommen sind.
Okay, and it was they were to come and investigate Sodom.
Und sie sollten kommen und Sodom untersuchen.
Okay, and to lead the people out of there before the punishment came upon it.
Und die Leute daraus herausführen, bevor die Bestrafung über sie kam.
Okay, which is a parallel to Passover when the angel would fly over and smite all the firstborn.
Und das ist eine Parallele zum Passa, wenn der Engel rüberfliegen würde und die Erstgeborenen erschlagen würde.
Okay, so today we're going to attempt, at least anyway, to go to Judges 19.
Und heute werden wir versuchen, zu Richter 19 zu kommen.
Now, I don't profess to understand everything in here,
Und ich gebe nicht vor, alles hier drin zu
but
verstehen.
we'll just lay out what's there, and we can hopefully bring many parts of it together.
Ja, wir werden einfach auslegen, was dort ist, und hoffentlich können wir dann viele Teile zusammenbringen.
Okay, so let's begin under the first head of the Sunday Law.
Gehen wir zum ersten Überschrift des Sonntagsgesetzes.
Okay, let's begin in Genesis chapter 6.
Fangen wir in 1. Mose 6 an.
It says, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." So here we have a false marriage, right?
Also hier haben wir eine falsche Ehe.
It's the daughters of men, the sons of God, it's this mingled relationship, right?
Also die Töchter der Menschen und die Söhne Gottes, das ist eine vermischte Beziehung.
And verse 3,
Vers 3.
"And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years." Right? So we know, in fact, just go to Matthew 24.
Also gehen wir zu Matthäus 24,
So just give you context of this.
um den Kontext davon zu erhalten.
So it was told here 120 years, and then the flood would come, right?
Dann 120 Jahre und dann wird die Flut kommen.
Then if we go to verse 36.
Und gehen wir zu Vers 36.
It says, "But of that day and hour knoweth no man, nor not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be." Right? So the 120 years ends when Christ comes, right?
Also die 120 Jahre enden, wenn Christus kommt.
How does Christ come?
Wie kommt Christus?
It's the former and the latter rain,
Wie der
right?
Früh- und der Spätregen.
Okay, so you can see that from the marriage to the point where the judgment comes is 120 years,
Also wir
right?
können sehen, von der Hochzeit bis zu dem Punkt, oder von der Ehe bis zu dem Punkt, wo das Gericht kommt, sind 120 Jahre.
Okay, so the false marriage, false marriage, I want to put here, and then you've got 120 years where God's Spirit is going to strive until the judgment, right?
Also man hat hier diese falsche Ehe und dann hat man 120 Jahre, wo Gottes Geist mit den Menschen ringen wird, bis dann das Gericht kommt.
Marriage of Ahaz with Jezebel.
Yes, we're going to come to that in a moment, right?
Wir werden gleich zur Ehe von Ahab und Isabel.
Okay, next go to 1 Kings 16,
Gehen wir zu 1. Könige 16,
verse 29.
Vers 29.
"And in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Ahab, the son of Omri, to reign over Israel. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Israel and Samaria 22 years. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord above all that were before him. And it came to pass, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he took to wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him." Right? So, Baal worship is Sunday worship. Right?
Also die Baalsanbetung ist Sonntagsanbetung.
And the king here, marrying Jezebel, is this false marriage that begins the Sunday law. Right?
Und der König, der hier Isabel heiratet, das ist eben diese falsche Ehe, und da fängt das Sonntagsgesetz an.
Okay, and if we go to 1 Kings 17,
Gehen wir zu 1. Könige 17,
verse 1.
Vers 1.
And Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, As the Lord God of Israel liveth, whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. And it was for 3.5 years, right?
Das war dann für 3,5 Jahre.
Which is 1260.
Und das ist 1260.
So you have this false marriage here to Jezebel,
Also hier hat man die falsche Ehe mit Isabel.
and the spirit was only going to strive for 1260, and you could only obtain it through Elijah, right?
Der Geist würde dann nur 1260 lang mit den Menschen ringen und man konnte das nur erhalten durch Elia.
I just want you to see that this 120 years probation is a parallel to this, to the Sunday Lookouts, the 1260.
Also ich möchte, dass ihr seht, dass diese 120 Jahre Gnadenzeit eine Parallele ist zu der 1260, zur Sonntagsgesetzkrise.
And now if we just go to Deuteronomy 34, verse 7,
Gehen wir zu 5. Mose 34 und Vers 7.
it says, And Moses was 120 years old when he died. And remember, he died right at the point where they're about to cross over into the promised land, right?
Erinnert euch, er starb kurz bevor sie in das verheißene Land eingetreten sind.
So you have a symbol of the same thing, right?
Sagt man das ein Symbol von demselben.
And we see that. So the 120 is marking this point when you, this transition point from the time of trouble to the time of peace.
Also die 120 Jahre markiert dann den Übergangspunkt von einer Zeit der Trübsal zu einer Zeit des Friedens.
Okay, so the 120, depending on context, is a symbol of this time period, right?
Also die 120 basierend auf den, also abhängig vom Kontext, ist ein Symbol hier für diese 1260.
Okay, so if we go to John chapter 4,
Gehen wir zu Johannes 4,
verse 35,
Vers 35.
it says, Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. So, 4 months. What is 4 months prophetically?
Was sind 4 Monate prophetisch?
120 days, right?
120 Tage.
So, they say that after 120 days comes the harvest,
Und sie
right?
sagen, nach 120 Tagen kommt die Ernte.
Okay, and if you go to Judges 19,
Gehen wir zu Richter 19,
verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, And it came to pass in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, who took to him a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah. So, in the time of Judges, the 12 tribes were all one, right?
Also in der Zeit der Richter waren die 12 Stämme alle ein.
Okay, and here's this Levite who lives in Ephraim, goes and marries a woman from Bethlehem, Judah. Right?
Und hier ist ein Levit, der in Ephraim wohnt und der geht und heiratet eine Frau aus Bethlehem, Juda.
Verse 2.
Vers 2.
And his concubine played the whore against him, and went away from him unto her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and was there 4 whole months. Right? So at the beginning here, we have a marriage,
Also hier am Anfang haben wir eine Ehe.
right? And immediately, from or at least from the marriage point of view, there's this 4-month period where she plays the whore.
Und dann hat man eben ab der Hochzeit dann diese 4 ganzen Monate, wo sie dann dann am Ende eine Hure spielt.
So when you play the whore, it's like you're marrying somebody else. It's a false marriage,
Und
right?
wenn sie eine Hure spielt, dann ist es dann heiratet sie ja jemanden anderes. Das ist auch wieder eine Ehe.
It's just like God's people when they married these strange wives. He gave them this time period to repent of that, right?
Das ist auch wie bei Gottes Volk. Als sie diese fremden Frauen geheiratet haben, da hat Gott ihnen nochmal eine Zeitspanne gegeben, um davon Buße zu tun.
So I want to put it that this 4 months is representing this first Sunday law, or this first time of trouble here.
Und ich möchte zeigen, dass diese 4 Monate das erste Sonntagsgesetz oder diese erste Zeit der Trübsal darstellen.
Verse 3.
Vers 3.
And her husband arose and went after her to speak friendly to her. So what's he trying to do?
Was versucht er zu tun?
Trying to win her back,
Er
right?
versucht sie zurückzugewinnen.
And to bring her again. So what I want to put is this guy's a Levite, that he's a representation of Christ trying to win her back to the truth, right?
Also dieser Levit ist eine Darstellung für Christus und er versucht sie wieder zurück zur Wahrheit zu gewinnen.
It says, having his servant with him and a couple of asses. So how's he going to her?
Also wie geht er mit zu ihr?
On a couple of asses,
Auf
right?
ein paar Eseln.
Okay. And she brought him into her father's house, and when the father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. Now, I don't get this point, right? Because it's like, in this sense, when he comes here, he is almost like he's the prodigal son, but I'm not quite sure I understand this point.
Also ich verstehe das jetzt nicht so ganz, weil hier scheint es, als wäre, also wenn er jetzt zum Vaters Haus kommt, als wäre er der verlorene Sohn.
Right, but nonetheless, it brings you to a point where they're reunited.
Aber
Right?
es bringt uns dann zu einem Punkt, wo sie wieder vereint werden.
So, the point I want to make, right, is that when he's going here, he's going up on these couple of asses, and I want us to, at the end here, right, what you have is the triumphal entry from here to here, right?
Also er geht eben hier hin auf ein paar Eseln und man hat ja von hier bis hier diesen triumphalen Einzug.
Okay, the point I'm making is, right, what is the triumphal entry?
Was ist der triumphale Einzug?
It's when the king enters into Jerusalem through the gates on an ass,
Wenn
right?
der König in die Tore Jerusalems einreitet auf einen Esel.
But in the time of Christ, there's a period where he's riding that ass prior to he enters into Jerusalem, right?
In der Zeit Christi, da ist eben eine Zeitspanne, wenn er auf diesen Esel reitet, bis er in Jerusalem ankommt.
Okay, so as to why it parallels it to the midnight cry.
Und Ellen White setzt das parallel mit dem Mitternachtsruf.
Okay, so you have this period where he's riding this ass before he gets to Jerusalem, right?
Und deswegen, man hat eine Zeitspanne, wo er diesen Esel reitet, bevor er nach Jerusalem kommt.
Okay, so we would understand that would be from here forward, right?
Und wir verstehen, dass es dann von hier vorwärts ist.
And it's anyway, just let's lay it out, and if we go to Zechariah 9 and verse 9,
Gehen wir zu Sacharja 9, Vers 9.
it says, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, behold thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly, and riding upon an ass, and upon a colt, the foal of an ass." How many asses?
Und wie viele Esel?
2, right?
2.
And if you go to Matthew 21,
Gehen wir zu Matthäus 21,
verse 1,
Vers 1.
it says, "And when they drew nigh unto Jerusalem, and were come unto Bethphage, unto the Mount of Olives, then sent Jesus 2 disciples. How many did he send?
Wie viele Jünger hat er gesandt?
2.
2.
Now, yesterday, at even, who was sent to Sodom?
Also gestern haben wir uns das angeschaut. Am Abend, wer wurde da nach Sodom gesandt?
2 angels, right?
Zwei
The
Engel.
2 anointed
Die
ones.
2 Gesalbten.
And I want us to see the reason why he sends 2 disciples here is they are typifying these 2 anointed ones coming to the same point prophetically.
Und der Grund, warum er hier eben diese 2 Jünger sendet, ist, weil sie diese 2 Gesalbten vorausschatten, die dann das sind.
They represent the 2 anointed ones.
You said something about this point.
Yes, that's where the 2 anointed ones came yesterday.
Ja, und das steht an diesem Punkt da, wenn die 2 Gesalbten gesandt sind.
Right, so we've got 2 disciples coming here, right?
Also hier haben wir 2 Jünger.
Right, it says, "Then sent Jesus 2 disciples, saying unto them, Go into the village over against you, and straightway ye shall find an ass tied, and a colt with her. Loose them, and bring them unto me." Now, what's the purpose of the cherubims?
Was ist der Zweck der Cherubim?
What we're discussing. Think of what we've just read. That's what it says. But what's the purpose of the cherubims?
Den Esel lösen. Was
Think
ist
about the studies that we've done on the cherubims. What's their purpose?
Denkt über den Zweck nach der Cherubime, was wir studiert haben. Loose and hold the winds.
To loose and hold the winds,
Sie
right?
sollen die Winde halten und lösen.
Okay. So he sends 2 disciples here, and they're to loose the ass,
Also
right?
er sendet 2 Jünger und sie sollen den Esel lösen.
Right? Okay. It says, straight away you shall find an ass tied and a colt with her. Loose them. How many is there loosing?
Wie viele lösen sie?
2, right?
2.
Loose them and bring them unto me. And if any man say out unto you, ye shall say, the Lord hath need of them. And straightway he will send them. All this was done that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, Tell ye the daughter of Zion, Behold, thy king cometh unto thee meek and sitting upon an ass, and the colt the foal of an ass. And the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded them, and brought the ass and the colt, and put on them their clothes, and they set him thereon. So when this Levite and his servant get on those 2 asses and they start making their way to go get his concubine, I just want us to see that it's the same thing, right?
Also wenn der Levit und sein Diener jetzt auf diese 2 Esel steigen und gehen, um die Nebenfrau zu holen, dann möchte ich euch sehen lassen, dass es eben dasselbe darstellt.
Right? Because when he gets there, he enters into the father's house and they are reunited. It's this marriage that takes place, or the reuniting of their marriage.
Also wenn er dort dann ankommt, dann geht er in das Haus des Vaters und dann findet dort wieder eine Wiedervereinigung statt. Der
Okay,
Ehe.
let me show you this in the Bible. Go to Jeremiah chapter 3.
Gehen wir zu Jeremia 3.
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, They say if a man put away his wife, and she go from him, and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers, yet return again unto me, saith the Lord. Lift up thine eyes into the high places, and see where thou hast not been lying with in the ways hast thou sat for them as the Arabian in the wilderness, and thou hast polluted the land with thy whoredoms and with thy wickedness. Therefore the showers have been withholden, and there hath been no latter rain. And thou hast a whore's forehead, and thou refusest to be ashamed. So what did this man's wife do?
Also was hat diese Frau dieses Mannes getan?
She played the whore for 4 months,
Sie hat
right?
die Hure für 4 Monate lang gespielt.
But I'm looking for where it says. Okay, yeah, if you go to verse 13,
Gehen wir zu Vers 13.
it says, Only acknowledge thine iniquities, that thou hast transgressed against the Lord thy God, and hast scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree, and ye have not obeyed my voice, saith the Lord. Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you 1 of a city and 2 of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. And if you go down to verse 20,
Gehen wir noch zu Vers 20.
Surely as a wife treacherously departeth from her husband, so have ye dealt treacherously with me, O house of Israel, saith the Lord. So here's this treacherous whore that's his wife, that's got all these idols, right?
Also hier haben wir diese abtrünnige Frau, also diese Hure, die all diese Götzen hat.
Okay, and he's trying to win her back to him, right?
Und er versucht, sie wieder zu ihm zurückzugewinnen.
Okay, we see the correlation.
Können wir den Zusammenhang sehen?
So this Levite, right, is a type of Christ, and it's also represent the two anointed ones, right? Because him and his servant.
Also dieser Levit ist ein Typus für Christus, aber er stellt auch die zwei Gesalbten dar, also er und sein Knecht.
At the end here, they travel on these asses to be reunited with his wife at the end, right?
Und sie reisen dann auf diesen Eseln hier am Ende, um dann ganz am Ende wieder vereint zu werden mit seiner Frau.
Okay, so now go to Revelation 9,
Gehen wir zur Offenbarung 9,
verse 12.
Vers 12.
So because he sends these two disciples to loose the ass,
Also er
right?
sendet diese zwei Jünger, um den Esel zu lösen.
Okay, so write two witnesses.
Ich schreibe jetzt zwei Zeugen hin.
And they loose the ass, right?
Und sie lösen den Esel.
We know that this is marking the beginning of the triumphal entry, right?
Und wir wissen, das markiert den Anfang des triumphalen Einzugs.
Okay, and if we go to Revelation 9 and verse 12,
Gehen wir zur Offenbarung 9, Vers 12.
it says, "One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter." Now, we've been showing this three different fractals here,
Und wir haben das gezeigt, es gibt drei verschiedene Fraktale hier.
right?
Amen.
Okay, and those three fractals, they're smaller, but they're more intense,
Und
right?
diese drei Fraktale sind kleiner, aber sie sind intensiver.
And they represent these birth pangs. They get smaller, but they get much more severe, right?
Und sie stellen diese Geburtswehen dar, sie werden kürzer, aber sie werden intensiver.
Okay, we understand that prophetically this is the first woe, this is the second woe, and this is the third woe.
Und wir wissen, dass das eben die erste Wehe ist, das die zweite Wehe und das die dritte Wehe.
Right? Because there's these are the trumpets which typify the plagues, right?
Ja, das sind die Posaunen und sie schatten die Plagen voraus.
So, verse 13.
Gehen wir zu Vers 13.
And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, "Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates." And the four angels were loosed. Right? So the four angels, these four cherubims, loosed the wind, right?
Diese vier Engel, diese vier Cherubim lösen jetzt den Wind.
Which were prepared for an hour, a day, and a month, a year, for to slay the third part of men, right? So when he's loosing the ass here, it's like this second woe, the winds are being loosed, right?
Und wenn hier den Esel löst, dann ist es wie diese zweite Wehe, wo die Winde gelöst werden.
Okay? And it's marking this point now, we have to ride the ass,
Und es
right?
markiert jetzt diesen Punkt, wo du den Esel reiten musst.
And it's this struggle that we have to have, but we have to have the victory,
Und
right?
das ist dieser Kampf, den wir dann haben müssen, aber wir müssen dann den Sieg erringen.
Okay, so if we go now back to Judges 19, verse 4,
Gehen wir jetzt zurück zu Richter 19 und Vers 4.
and this part I don't understand, but I'm just going to lay it out anyway. Right?
Und diesen Teil verstehe ich jetzt nicht, aber ich werde ihn trotzdem auslegen.
Okay, so verse 4.
Vers 4.
And his father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him, and he abode with him 3 days, so they did eat and drink and lodged there. So what I want us to see now, there's now a period of 5 days.
Und ich möchte hier zeigen, dass es eine Zeitspanne von 5 Tagen jetzt ist.
Right? And they're not a parallel to the 5 days that we looked at yesterday.
Aber das ist nicht eine Parallele zu den 5 Tagen, die wir uns gestern angeschaut
We're going to
haben.
see that the 5th day actually finishes at the point here where the 5th day and the other thing begins. Right?
Und wir werden sehen, dass der 5. Tag dann hier aufhört und bei der anderen Geschichte fängt dort aber der 5. Tag erst an.
Okay, and this 5 days is split into three different portions, if you want to look at it. Right?
Und dieser 5. Tag ist in 3 verschiedene Teile aufgeteilt.
So first of all, it says that he abode with them 3 days, so they did eat and drink and lodged there. Right. So I just want to. I mean, the most obvious place is because it's beginning here would be that this would represent the 3 days. Right?
Also das Offensichtlichste wäre dann, weil das würde hier anfangen, dass das hier diese 3 Tage sind.
Okay. In verse 5.
Vers 5.
And it came to pass on the 4th day, when they rose early in the morning, that he rose up to depart. And the damsel's father said unto his son-in-law, Comfort thine heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward go your way. And they sat down and did eat and drink both of them together. For the damsel's father had said unto the man, Be content, I pray thee, and tarry all night, and let thy heart be merry. So what's now marked here?
Was ist jetzt hier markiert?
The tarrying time,
Die Verzögerungszeit.
which we see here. So you have the 4th day beginning, right?
Also hier fängt der 4. Tag an.
Marks where they are to tarry.
Das markiert, wenn sie verzögern sollen.
Okay, and verse 7.
Vers 7.
And when the man rose up to depart, his father-in-law urged him, therefore he lodged there again. And he rose early in the morning of the 5th day to depart. And the damsel's father said, Comfort thine heart, I pray thee. And they tarried until the afternoon. And they did eat both of them. And when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law and damsel's father, said unto him, Behold now, the day draweth towards when? Evening, right?
Es wird zum Abend.
So, they're on the 5th day here, right?
Wir sind am 5. Tag
And it's drawing towards evening,
und es
right?
wird jetzt Abend.
Okay. And you'll see why I'm putting it right here, because it's a complete parallel to Genesis 19.
Und ihr werdet jetzt sehen, warum ich das dahin setze, weil das eine richtige Parallele zu 1. Mose 19.
So for 5 days, what have they been doing?
Also 5 Tage lang, was haben sie getan?
They've been eating and drinking, right?
Sie haben gegessen und getrunken.
Good thing or a bad thing?
Ist das etwas Gutes oder Schlechtes?
It depends on context, but what is in this context, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Also in diesem Kontext ist das jetzt etwas Gutes oder etwas Schlechtes?
It's a good thing, right? He's a representation of Christ, comes into the Father's house, the marriage has been reunited, right? And they've been eating and drinking, representing them receiving, because what begins here?
Also das ist etwas Gutes, weil er ist eine Darstellung von Christus und er hat jetzt mit ihnen gegessen und getrunken und die Ehe ist wieder vereint. Und was fängt hier an?
No, think about eating and drinking. What begins here?
Denkt an Essen und Trinken, was fängt hier an?
What parable begins here? The 10
Also
virgins,
das
right?
Gleichnis der 10 Jungfrauen.
And what are you to do from this point forward?
Und was sollst du von diesem Punkt vorwärts machen?
You've got to gather the oil,
Du
right?
musst das Öl sammeln.
And when are you going to be tested whether or not you gather that oil?
Und wann wirst du geprüft werden, ob du das Öl gesammelt hast oder nicht?
Right here, right?
Also hier.
So you can see from, at least in this illustration, to these 5 days, it's been eating and drinking right up until this point, right?
Deswegen kann man sehen, in dieser Darstellung sind diese 5 Tage Essen und Trinken bis dann zu diesem Punkt.
Okay, so if we go back to the notes, right?
Gehen wir zurück zu den
Verse
Notizen.
9.
Vers 9.
And when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the damsel's father, said unto him, Behold now, the day draweth towards evening. I pray you, tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end. Lodge here, that thine heart may be merry, and tomorrow get you early on your way, that you mayst go home. But the man would not tarry that night, but he rose up and departed, and came over against Jebus, which is Jerusalem, and there were with him 2 asses saddled. So it's coming right up to this point now, and what's he now got?
Jetzt kommt er bis zu diesem Punkt und was hat er jetzt?
two asses saddled, right?
zwei gesattelte Esel.
Okay, and at this point, right, when they were loosing the ass, there was two of them, right?
Und an diesem Punkt, wo sie den Esel gelöst haben, da gab es ja zwei davon.
Okay, so it's marking it there for us, right?
Also es markiert es da für uns.
His concubine was also with him. It says, and when they were by Jebus, the day was far spent, and the servant said unto his master, Come, I pray thee, and let us turn into this city of the Jebusites, and lodge in it. And his master said unto him, We will not turn aside hither into the city of a stranger that is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. So, what is taking place here?
Jetzt was findet hier statt?
I don't think so. This is in the time period of the judges. Jerusalem is a heathen city at this time.
Also in der Zeit der Richter ist Jerusalem eine heidnische Stadt.
Point when Jerusalem, when the Holy Spirit rises and goes over down the mountain.
I don't think so.
Passes by Jerusalem.
No, I don't think so. Jerusalem is a heathen city at this time.
That's in that context. It's then a heathen city, so it's been passed by.
No,
The
I
house
think
is left unto the desolate.
Scott, yeah, you're listening to me.
No, I'm listening
It's
to you.
it's never in this thing. It's never been. It's not even counted as being anything to do with God's people, right? It's a heathen city, right? And what is your test in this time period right here? What's your test?
Also in dieser Zeitspanne, was ist dein Test?
What's Satan going to try to get you to do?
Was versucht Satan, dass du tust?
To reject your past experience, right?
Dass du deine vergangene Erfahrung.
So when you read it, right, remember every symbol has to be determined by context.
Also dass du deine vergangene Erfahrung verwirfst und jedes Symbol muss ja seinen passenden Kontext
I thought
haben.
that every parable is line upon line the same parable.
Yes.
So in that sense, it has to be the same.
No, it doesn't have to be the same. The symbols don't have to be the same. The pattern has to be the same.
Well, that would be the same pattern. Passes by one city and goes to another.
Scott, this city is representing a heathen city, and it's saying that it's basically saying we will not enter into it. They're not leaving it, right? If you want to make that argument, they would have to come out of Jerusalem, but they're not even in it. They don't want to enter into it, right? It's marking a point where they're refusing to partake of something that's evil, that they're being tempted to do.
Also, sie gehen ja jetzt nicht irgendwie an Jerusalem vorbei, weil sie kommen ja nicht, sie verlassen diese Stadt ja nicht, sondern sie sind damit versucht und they are tempted to.
Yes, they're being
Enter
tempted.
into this.
Because it's coming, they're right at this point, and they're being tempted that they need to go shelter into this city, right?
Also sie kommen ja hier zu diesem Punkt und sie werden jetzt versucht, dass sie einen Schutz in dieser Stadt finden.
So it says, where are we now? Verse 11.
Vers 11.
And when they were by Jebus, the day was far spent, and the servant said unto his master, Come, I pray thee, and let us turn into this city of the Jebusites, and lodge in it. And his master said unto him, We will not turn aside hither into the city of a stranger. So what sort of city is it?
Also was für eine Art Stadt ist das?
A city that's full of strangers.
Eine
right?
Stadt, die voll von Fremden ist.
That is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. And he said unto his servant, Come and let us draw near to one of these places to lodge all night in Gibeah or in Ramah. And Gibeah means on a hill.
Gibeah bedeutet auf einem
Just
Hügel.
looked it up to see what it represents.
Ich habe das mal nachgeschaut, um zu sehen, was es darstellt.
Verse 14.
Vers 14.
And they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down upon them when they were by Gibeah, which belongeth to Benjamin. And they turned aside thither to go in and lodge in Gibeah, and when he went in, he sat him down in a street of the city, for there was no man that took them into his house to lodging. Right? So they've avoided going into partaking of something that's evil, and they've now chosen something that's good, right?
Sie haben es jetzt vermieden, an etwas teilzunehmen, also dort hineinzugehen, was böse ist, und haben jetzt they chose.
something that's good.
Sie haben jetzt das Gute gewählt.
Okay, so in verse 15, what do we see a parallel to here?
Und was sehen wir jetzt in Vers 15 für eine Parallele?
Of Christ.
Right, the time of Christ. Remember, who's he coming with here?
Von der Zeit Christi, und mit wem kommt er hier?
The man is with his concubine, right?
Der Mann ist mit seiner Nebenfrau.
So it's like Joseph and Mary,
Das ist wie Maria und Josef.
right? They come into this city and what can they not find?
Sie kommen in die Stadt, und was können sie nicht finden?
They can't find shelter,
Sie
right?
können keinen Schutz finden oder keine Unterkunft finden.
Okay, go to the quote that posted.
Gehen wir zu dem Zitat, was ich geschickt habe.
It says, angels attend Joseph and Mary as they journey from their home in Nazareth to the city of David. The decree of imperial Rome for the enrollment of the peoples of her vast dominion has extended to the dwellers among the hills of Galilee. As in old times Cyrus was called to the throne of the world's empire that he might set free the captives of the Lord, so Caesar Augustus is made the agent for the fulfillment of God's purposes in bringing the mother of Jesus to Bethlehem. So the purpose of Cyrus was marking when God's people are going to be set free, right?
Also der Zweck von Kyros markiert, wenn Gottes Volk freigesetzt wird.
And you can see here Caesar Augustus is also being used by the Lord for a similar purpose because it's going to mark the birth of Christ. Right?
Caesar Augustus können wir sehen, er wird für einen ähnlichen Zweck benutzt, weil das markiert dann die Geburt Christi.
Okay, and the birth of Christ is marked at the end here. We've gone through this many
Und die
times.
Geburt Christi ist ja hier am Ende markiert, das haben wir ja schon oft angeschaut.
Okay, it says, she is of the lineage of David, and the son of David must be born in David's city. Out of Bethlehem, said the prophet, shall he come forth. That is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from old, from the days of eternity. But in the city of their royal line, Joseph and Mary are unrecognized and unhonored, weary and homeless. They traverse the entire length of the narrow street, from the gate of the city to the eastern extremity of the town, vainly seeking a resting place for the night. There is no room for them at the crowded inn. In a rude building where the beasts are sheltered, they at last find refuge, and here the Redeemer of the world is born. Okay, so I just want you to see that in Judges 19 verse 15, when they come into this city, it's the place where they're meant to be, but they can't find some place to be taken into.
Also ich möchte euch eben sehen lassen, dass in Richter 19, Vers 15, wenn sie dann in diese Stadt kommen, oder in diese Straße, das ist der Ort, wo sie sein sollten, aber dort finden sie eben keinen Platz.
Okay, so when you go back to Judges 19, verse 15,
Gehen wir zurück zu Richter 19, Vers 15.
it says, and they turned aside thither to go in and to lodge in Gibeah, and when he went in, he sat him down in a street of the city, for there was no man that took them into his house to lodge in. What does that mean?
Was bedeutet das?
Okay. Christ stands at the door and what?
Also Christus steht an der Tür, und was macht er?
And knocks.
Und klopft an.
So if any man will hear my voice and open the door, right?
Wenn jemand meine Stimme hört und die Tür öffnet,
So what does it represent?
was stellt das also hier dar? Reject.
Yeah, that when the gospel message comes, most people are going to reject it, right?
Also wenn die Evangeliumsbotschaft kommt, dann werden die meisten Leute das ablehnen.
Okay, go to verse 16.
Gehen wir zu Vers 16.
And behold, there came an old man from his work out of the field at even. When was it?
Wann war das?
At even,
Am
right?
Abend.
Which was also of Mount Ephraim, and he sojourned in Gibeah. But the men of the place were Benjamites. And when he had lifted up his eye, he saw a wayfaring man in the street of the city, and the old man said, Whither goest thou, and whence comest thou? And he said unto him, We are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, toward the side of Mount Ephraim, and from thence I am, and I went to Bethlehem, Judah, but now I am going to the house of the Lord, and there is no man that receiveth me to house. Yet there is both straw and provender for our asses, and there is bread and wine also for me and for thy handmaid, and for the young man which is with thy servants. There is no want of anything. And the old man said, Peace be with thee. Howsoever, let all thy wants lie upon me, only lodge not in the street. So who's this man a parallel to?
Also zu wem, oder, ja, was ist der Mann jetzt hier? Zu wem steht er parallel?
To Lot, right?
Zu Lot.
So the two witnesses came to Sodom at even,
Die
right?
zwei Zeugen kamen nach Sodom am Abend.
And as Lot saw them, he offered them a place to stay, right?
Und als Lot sie gesehen hat, da hat er ihnen einen Platz angeboten, um zu bleiben.
So you can see that this man and his concubine on his asses are a type of the two witnesses,
Also wir
right?
können sehen, dass diese Nebenfrau und der Mann mit den Eseln ein Typus ist für die zwei Gesagten, zwei
Okay.
Zeugen.
And so let's see what happens. Verse 21.
Vers 21.
So he brought him into his house and gave provender unto the asses, and they washed their feet and did eat and drink. When does the foot washing and or should I say, when does the Passover begin?
Wann fängt das Passa an?
Remember, so here it's at even, right?
Also hier ist es ja am Abend.
And he invites them into the house,
Er
right?
lädt sie in das Haus ein.
So remember, what are they doing in this time period to get him to come into the house?
Und was machen sie in dieser Zeitspanne, damit er in das Haus kommt?
Think yesterday, Luke 24, and they're constraining that they're. So you've got this little struggle going on here, trying to get him to come in, and he enters into the house here, right?
Also in Lukas 24, da ist dieser Kampf, also dort flehen sie, dass er in das Haus kommt, und dann kommen sie hier in das Haus.
It says, and they washed their feet and did eat and drink. So what are they doing?
Was machen sie?
The foot washing, right?
Die Fußwaschung.
Okay. So, and that's what we understand takes place here, the foot washing.
Und wir
Right?
verstehen, dass das hier stattfindet, die Fußwaschung.
And it's the Passover, they're eating and drinking the flesh and blood of Christ,
Und
right?
das ist das Passa, sie essen und trinken das Fleisch und Blut Christi.
So that's the exact same pattern as we saw yesterday,
Und das
right?
ist genau dasselbe Muster, was wir auch gestern gesehen haben.
Okay. And in verse 22,
Vers 22.
now as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about and beat the door, and spake to the master of the house, the old man, saying, Bring forth the man that came into thine house, that we may know him. So what? Just go to Genesis 19.
Gehen wir zu 1. Mose
I just
19.
want you to see the perfect parallel here.
Ich möchte euch die vollkommene Parallele dazu zeigen.
Just remind us because okay, so if you just go to verse 3,
Gehen wir zu Vers 3.
it says, And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned into him, and entered into his house. He made them a feast, and did bake and leaven bread, and they did eat. So exactly the same here. They're having this meal in the house, right?
Also das ist genau hier dasselbe. Hier haben sie diese Mahlzeit im Haus.
But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in unto thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. Exact same language,
Das
right?
ist genau dieselbe Sprache.
So when you go back to Judges 19,
Gehen wir zurück zu Richter 19,
verse 22.
Vers 22.
Now as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about and beat at the door. So these sons of Belial would be a parallel to those people of Sodom, right?
Also diese Söhne Belials sind eine Parallele zu den Leuten von Sodom.
and spake to the master of the house, the old man, saying, Bring forth the man that came into this house, that we may know him. Right? And the man, the master of the house, went out unto them and said unto them, Nay, my brethren, nay, I pray you, do not so wickedly. Right? And he said the exact same thing in Genesis 19 and verse 7.
Und genau dasselbe hat er in 1. Mose 19, Vers 7 gesagt.
And I said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Right? It's like a perfect parallel that we're to bring together, right?
Das ist wie eine perfekte Parallele, die wir jetzt zusammenbringen müssen.
So in Judges 19:23,
Richter 19, Vers 23.
he says, Nay, I pray you, do not so wickedly, seeing that this man is come into mine house, do not this folly. Right? And we read yesterday that these people that are sodomites in Romans chapter 1 are also the foolish virgins.
Wir
Right?
haben gestern gelesen, dass diese Leute in Römer 1 Sodomiter sind.
They're also the foolish
Und
virgins.
sie sind auch die törichten Jungfrauen.
Okay. So it says they proclaim themselves as wise, but they became foolish, right?
Und es sagt, dass sie vorgeben, weise zu sein, aber sie wurden töricht.
Okay, so verse 24.
Im Vers 24.
Behold, here is my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. Them will I bring out now, and humble ye them, and do with them what seemeth good unto you. But unto this man do not so vile a thing. So yesterday, when we read Judges 19, the man said, Here are my two daughters, take them, but don't take this man. Right? In Genesis 19.
Und gestern, wo wir 1. Mose 19 gelesen haben, hat er gesagt, dass er nicht diese Männer nehmen soll, sondern er hat seine 2 Töchter gegeben und dass sie das mit ihnen machen soll.
Okay, but they didn't take the two daughters in Genesis 19.
Aber sie haben in 1. Mose 19 nicht diese 2 Töchter genommen.
What they did is they molested Lot at the door, right?
Und was sie getan haben, sie wollten eben haben Lot belästigt an der Tür.
Okay, so the man of the house, which is a parallel to Lot, offers to give his daughter and the concubine, which would be a parallel to those 2 daughters, right?
Also dieser Mann an der Tür, was eine Parallele zu Lot ist, er hat angeboten, dass er
Seine Tochter und die Nebenfrau.
seine Tochter und die Nebenfrau gibt, was einfach Parallele ist zu den 2 Töchtern.
Okay, verse 25.
Vers 25.
But the men would not hearken to him. So the man took his concubine and brought her forth unto them. And they knew her and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go. So, okay, so the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11, what do they do to the 2 witnesses in this time?
Was machen sie mit den 2 Zeugen in Offenbarung 11 in dieser Zeit?
The what, sorry? Yeah, they put them to death, right?
Also sie bringen sie zu Tode.
Or they want to sodomize the word, right? They want to destroy the message.
Weil sie wollen das also mit dem Wort Sodomie treiben, also die Botschaft zerstören.
Because the 2 witnesses represent the Bible.
Weil
Right?
die 2 Zeugen, sie stellen ja die Bibel dar.
That's what they represented historically, right?
Also das haben sie ja historisch dargestellt.
So they took the Bibles out into the street, and for 3.5 years they burned them publicly.
Also
Right?
sie haben die Bibel auf die Straßen gebracht und haben sie für 3,5 Jahre lang öffentlich verbrannt.
Okay, so what I want us to see is that when the man takes out his concubine, it's representing this, because she's like a parallel to Mary, and she's about to give birth to Christ, right?
Also diese Nebenfrau ist ja ein Typus für Maria und sie ist ja kurz davor, dass sie Christus gebärt.
So they want to destroy this beautiful message that's been brought to the world.
Also sie wollen diese wunderschöne Botschaft zerstören, die der Welt gebracht wird.
Okay, so verse 26.
gehen wir zu Vers 26.
Then came the woman in the dawning of the day, and fell down at the door of the man's house where her Lord was, till it was light. So, if you go to 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 19,
Gehen wir zu 2. Petrus 1, Vers 19.
it says, We have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well, that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, until what?
Bis wann?
The day dawn, and the day star arise in your hearts.
Also bis der Tag anbricht.
So, she was being abused, sodomized, until the day dawns, right?
Sie wurde missbraucht und Sodomie wurde mit ihr getrieben, bis der Tag anbrach.
It's the appointed time where the Lord is going to fill you with His Spirit, right?
Es ist die bestimmte Zeit, wenn der Herr dich dann mit seinem Geist füllen wird.
Launch it up.
I mean, it not only represents the message, but also the God's people, right? The church should get basically.
Yes, they're
know-
the message bearers, right? Yes.
So when we come to this point, they will basically abuse us in the sense that they will
Yes,
torture us and all these things.
yes. I mean, you can't separate. I mean, you can't separate God's people from the message, right?
Also wenn sie diese Frau missbrauchen, das stellt natürlich nicht nur die Botschaft dar, sondern auch Gottes Volk. Das kann man ja nicht voneinander trennen, weil sie bringen die Botschaft und das ist dann der Punkt, wenn sie dich dann quälen und ja, missbrauchen und schlagen.
Now remember, look, they're trying to put you to death, or they're going to put you to death in this time period. But it also represents when you're standing in the courts, right? And they're tearing apart the truth, and you're defending the truth, right?
Und also hier werden sie dich auch zu Tode bringen, aber es stellt auch dar, wenn du in diesen Gerichtshöfen stehst und sie die Wahrheit auseinandernehmen und du musst dann dort stehen und für die Wahrheit einstehen.
Because He says, in that hour I will give you the words to speak,
Und er
right?
sagt, in dieser Stunde werde ich euch die Worte geben, die du sprechen sollst.
So it's marking you defending the truth in a time of peril when you're facing death,
Das
right?
markiert dann, wenn du die Wahrheit verteidigst in einer Zeit ja, der Not.
Marks a time when you're defending the message when you're facing death.
Also wenn du mit dem Tod ins Angesicht kommst.
Okay, so it says the woman. Then came the woman in the dawning of the light. She fell down at the door of the man's house where her Lord was, till it was light. Okay, and if we go to verse 27,
Gehen wir zu Vers 27.
it says, And her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house, and went out to go his way, and behold, the woman, his concubine, was fallen down at the door of the house, and her hands were upon the threshold. Now, I've wanted to understand what this means for years.
Ich wollte das über Jahre schon verstehen, was das bedeutet.
Okay, but let's just see what the Bible marks on this point.
Also lasst uns sehen, was die Bibel über diesen Punkt markiert.
If you go to 1 Samuel 3 and verse 15,
Gehen wir zu 1. Samuel 3 und Vers 15.
okay, it's a parallel story.
Das ist eine Parallelgeschichte.
It says, And Samuel lay until the morning. So it's marking Samuel 3 times the Lord had called him, right?
Das markiert ja, dass der Herr den Samuel dreimal gerufen hat.
Okay, and he lays until the morning and opened the doors of the house. So when did the man in Judges 19 open the doors of the house?
Also er liegt da bis zum Morgen und dann öffnet er die Türen des Hauses. Und wann hat der Mann in Richter 19 die Türen geöffnet?
At the morning, right?
Am
When the
Morgen.
sun comes up,
Also
right?
wenn die Sonne aufkommt.
Okay, so you can see it's like a parallel thought, right?
Also wir können sehen, das ist ein Parallelgedanke.
So Samuel lay until the morning and opened the doors of the house of the Lord, and Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. And Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son, and he said, Here am I. So who says, Here am I?
Wer sagt, hier bin ich?
Isaiah.
Jesaja.
So there's this holy, 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 here am I, send me, right?
Also man hat heilig, heilig, heilig und am Schluss, hier bin ich, sende mich.
And Samuel, when he opens those doors now, and Eli is asking him to tell him the prediction, right?
Also hier in der Geschichte von Samuel wird jetzt die Türen geöffnet und Eli bittet ihn jetzt, dass er ihm die Vorhersage gibt.
Right? So this would mark the point where the prediction goes forward,
Und das
right?
markiert dann den Punkt, wenn die Vorhersage vorwärts geht.
When those doors get opened,
Wenn
right?
diese Türen geöffnet werden.
And let's go to Psalm 78,
Gehen wir jetzt zu Psalm 78,
verse 21.
Vers 21.
Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth, so a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came upon Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation, though he had commanded the clouds from heaven, and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven. So, why is the Lord wroth?
Warum ist der Herr zornig?
Well, he's wroth because they didn't receive the manna when he opened the doors of heaven,
Also er
right?
ist zornig, weil sie nicht das Manna erhalten haben, als er die Tore des Himmels geöffnet hat.
So when you reject the exceeding bright light, what happens?
Also wenn man das überaus helle Licht ablehnt, was geschieht dann?
The door's closed on you,
Also
right?
die Tür wird geschlossen für
Okay,
dich.
now just go to Acts 16,
Gehen wir zur Apostelgeschichte 16,
verse 25.
Vers 25.
It says, and at midnight, when was it?
Wann war das?
At midnight.
An Mitternacht.
Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken. And immediately all the doors were what? Opened, and everyone's hand was loosed. Right? So remember in the fiery furnace, what did Nebuchadnezzar say?
Und denkt daran, im Feuerofen, das hat Nebukadnezar gesagt.
It says, Lo, I see 3 men loosed.
Er
Right?
hat gesagt, siehe, ich sehe 3,
No, it says 4 men, but three of them are loosed.
also ich
Fourth
sehe
wasn't loosed.
4 Männer, also sie waren aber gelöst. Also
Right? It's marking this point, in the 9th hour here, you're loosed from your sin.
das
Right?
markiert ja hier in der 9. Stunde, da bist du von deiner Sünde gelöst.
Okay, so, and if you go to Judges, back to Judges 19, verse 28.
Gehen wir nochmal zu Richter 19 zurück, Vers 28.
And he said unto her, Up, and let us be going. But none answered. Then the man took her upon an ass, and the man rose up and gat him unto his place. Right? So she's lying on the floor there, and she's dead. Right?
Also sie liegt da am Boden und sie ist tot.
So what does he do?
Also was macht er?
I want to put it to that he resurrects her here.
Also ich möchte euch vorschlagen,
Yes.
dass er sie hier auferweckt.
Yes. So he it's okay, we'll come to it. He picks her up and puts her on the ass, right?
Also er nimmt sie auf und setzt sie auf seinen Esel.
Okay, so if we go to Luke 10 and verse 33,
Gehen wir zu Lukas 10, Vers 33.
it says, But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. Now, when is this? What's he doing here?
Wann ist das? Was macht er hier?
He's passing him by,
Er
right?
geht an ihm vorüber.
We went through this, right? And that's the time of mercy.
Das ist diese Zeit der Gnade.
And went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine. That would be the day star arising in his heart, right?
Also er gießt Öl und Wein hinein und das wäre dann der Morgenstern, der in seinem Herzen aufgeht.
Who pours in that oil?
Und wer gießt dieses Öl hinein?
The 2 cherubims,
Die
right?
2 Cherubim.
Lawrence went through this the other night. They're standing either side of your heart and they're pouring in the oil,
Das
right?
Lorenz ja letztens sind durchgegangen. Sie stehen auf beiden Seiten deines Herzens und gießen dieses Öl in dein Herz.
So, bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast. What does he do?
Was macht er?
He puts him on the ass,
Er
right?
setzt ihn auf den Esel.
And brought him to an inn and took care of him. So, when you go to Hosea chapter 6 also,
Gehen wir zu Hosea, auch noch zu Hosea 6.
it says, Come and let us return unto the Lord. So, this whore right, that had left the Lord, what did the Lord say to her to do?
Also diese Hure, die den Herrn verlassen hat, was hat der Herr zu ihr gesagt, dass sie tun soll?
Return unto me, right?
Kehre zu mir zurück.
Okay, so here it says, come and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn and he will heal us. He hath smitten and he will bind us up. After 2 days he will revive us. In the 3rd day he will raise us up and we shall live in his sight. And this is what you see in Revelation 11.
Und
Right?
das kann man auch sehen in Offenbarung 11.
Revelation 11 is talking about Sodom and Egypt. Right?
Offenbarung 11 spricht über Sodom und Ägypten,
The two witnesses.
die 2 Zeugen.
Verse 11.
Vers 11.
And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life of God entered into them. This is the day star, right? It's the oil and the wine being poured into them, right?
Der Geist, der kommt jetzt in sie hinein und das ist der Morgenstern, das ist das Öl und der Wein, der in sie hineingegossen wird.
And they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. So when they get resurrected here, great fear falls upon the people.
Also
Right?
wenn sie hier auferweckt werden, da kommt große Furcht über die Menschen.
And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. And the same hour there was a great earthquake. Okay, so go to Judges chapter 19,
Vers 13 gehen wir jetzt zu Richter 19 zurück,
verse 29.
Vers 29.
And when he was come into his house, he took a knife and laid hold on his concubine and divided her, together with her bones, into 12 pieces, and sent her into all the coasts of Israel. What did he do with her?
Was hat er getan mit ihr?
He sent her,
Er hat sie gesandt.
right? So the 12 pieces go to all of Israel, right?
Also die 12 Teile, sie gehen zu ganz Israel.
It's like a worldwide message.
Das ist wie eine weltweite Botschaft.
Okay, and it says, verse 30.
Vers 30.
And it was so that all that saw it said there was no such deed done, nor seen, from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt unto this day. So what's the Bible paralleling it with?
Also mit was setzt die Bibel das parallel?
Coming out of Egypt.
Mit dem
Right?
Herauskommen aus Ägypten.
Okay. So, yeah, and we know that this point here at the end, or here, it makes no difference. It's the beginning, right?
Und wir wissen, dass dieser Punkt hier am Ende, hier oder dort, das ist dasselbe, also das ist der Anfang.
It's the beginning when he lays the foundation of the earth, right?
Das ist der Anfang, wo das Fundament der Erde liegt.
Right, and he puts in the sky these 12 constellations.
Und er setzt dann am Himmel diese 12 Sternbilder.
And what do these 12 constellations do?
Was machen diese 12 Sternbilder?
They speak,
Sie sprechen.
right? They go around the whole earth. Is that
Sie
what we read?
Sie gehen zur ganzen Erde. Das ist nicht, was wir gelesen hatten.
Just go to Psalm 19.
Gehen wir zu Psalm 19.
Because these 12 pieces that he's divided up are sent to all the coasts of Israel.
Weil diese 12 Teile, die er geteilt hat, die sendet er jetzt zu der ganzen Küste von Israel.
Verse 1.
Gehen wir zu Psalm 19, Vers 1.
It says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. Okay, so the point is that it says the line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. Right? It's the same as these 12 pieces go to all the coasts of Israel. Right?
Und das sagt er hier in Vers 4, ihre Linie ist durch die ganze Erde durchgegangen, ihre Worte zu der Ende der Welt. Das ist wie diese 12 Teile, die dann ans Israel gesandt werden.
Okay, so there's one last point that I want to make.
Und ein letzter Punkt, den ich machen möchte.
It's in 1 Samuel 11.
ist in 1. Samuel 11.
There's something similar here being done.
Und da wird etwas Ähnliches getan.
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, Then Nahash the Ammonite came up and encamped against Jabez Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said unto Nahash, Make a covenant with us, and we will serve thee. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, On this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all your right eyes, and lay it for a reproach upon all Israel. And the elders of Jabesh said unto him, Give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers unto all the coasts of Israel. Where do they want to send it to?
Wohin wollen Sie das senden?
All the coasts of Israel.
Zu der ganzen Küsten von Israel.
And then, if there be no man to save us, we will come out to thee. So what are they looking for?
Also nach was halten Sie Ausschau?
A savior, right?
Nach einem Erlöser.
Then came the messengers to Gibeah of Saul, and told the tidings in the ears of the people, and all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And behold, Saul came after the herd out of the field, and Saul said, What aileth the people that they weep? And they told him the tidings of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard those tidings, and his anger was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen, and hewed them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the coasts of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, Whosoever cometh not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done unto him, unto his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell upon the people, and they came with one consent. So we see when he chops up these yoke of oxen, sends it to all the coasts of Israel, sends it to the 12 tribes, right?
Wir können sehen, wenn er dieses Joch von Ochsen nimmt und es in Stücke haut und durch ganz Israel sendet, dann
He sent it to the 12 tribes.
Achso, dann hat er es zu den 12 Stämmen gesandt.
Right? And you can see that it was a message that brought great fear upon them.
Und wir können sehen, das war eine Botschaft, die große Furcht über sie gebracht hat.
Right? You see the sort of parallel thought there,
Man
right?
könnte diesen Parallelgedanken sehen.
Right?
Yes.
So that's what I understand about that book. But although it's clear to see that 5 goes from here to here, I don't know what that means, right?
Also, das ist jedenfalls das, was ich von diesem Buch verstehe. Und obwohl es klar zu sehen ist, dass diese 5 von hier bis hier geht, weiß ich auch nicht, was es bedeutet.
Okay, so it was a symbol that didn't really make any sense to me, although it clearly shows that it begins there and ends here.
Also
Right?
es ist ein Symbol, was für mich nicht so viel Sinn gemacht hat, aber man kann ja klar zeigen, dass es hier anfängt und hier endet.
But when you bring those 2 stories together, you can see the Lord does the same thing here. He puts the 2 men riding the ass, the 2 witnesses, and then the 2 witnesses come here, and it shows you the same illustration in a different way. Right?
Also wir können ganz klar sehen, dass es eben hier dieser selbe Punkt ist, wenn diese 2 Männer auf dem Esel reiten und
It's just paralleling the same thing here. The 2 witnesses come at evening, but it's showing you the same thing in a different way.
Und das ist dann parallel, wenn diese 2 Zeugen hier am Abend kommen und es zeigt dir dasselbe, aber auf eine andere Art und Weise.
Right? Because this illustration is showing them riding the ass. This illustration is showing them the trials that they're going through, paralleling that time.
Also diese Darstellung zeigt dann, wie sie den Esel reiten, und diese Darstellung zeigt dann diese Trübsale, wo sie hindurchgehen müssen, das was parallel zu dieser Zeit ist.
Right? And so we need to look at these things closely. I'm sure there's still much we have to learn from that.
Und diese Dinge müssen wir genau anschauen, und ich bin mir sicher, da gibt es noch vieles, was wir davon lernen müssen.
Right? Okay, let's close with prayer.
Dann lass uns mit Gebet abschließen.
Dear Father in heaven,
Lieber Vater im Himmel,
thank you, Lord, for this illustration.
danke, Herr, für diese Darstellung.
And we thank you that you have given us some further insight into the story.
Und wir danken dir, dass du uns ein bisschen mehr Einsicht in diese Geschichte geschenkt hast.
And we are looking forward to understanding all these deep things from your word.
Und wir freuen uns schon darauf, all diese tiefen Dinge von deinem Wort zu verstehen.
And help us therefore to strive to obtain this understanding.
Und hilf uns deswegen, dass wir danach streben, dieses Verständnis zu erhalten.
Because it's only by digging deep in your word we can find the precious pearl.
Weil es ist nur, indem wir tief in deinem Wort graben, dass wir diese kostbare Perle erhalten können.
And you promised to then reward us if we do so.
Du hast verheißen, dass du uns belohnen wirst, wenn wir das tun.
And please also take the thought from this story of Judges 19.
Und bitte nimm auch diesen Gedanken von der Geschichte von Richter 19.
That whenever we are unfaithful to you, that we would return to you again.
Und dass wann immer wir untreu zu dir sind, dass wir wieder zu dir zurückkehren.
We thank you, Lord, that you go out after us to bring us back.
Und wir danken dir, dass du uns nachgehst, um es zurückzubringen.
And help us also to be prepared when they will come and abuse us and destroy us.
Und hilf uns auch, vorbereitet zu sein, wenn sie kommen, um uns zu missbrauchen und zu zerstören.
And help us to endure that we would then also be sent to all the coasts of Israel.
Und hilf uns auszuharren, damit wir dann auch gesandt werden können zu den ganzen Küsten von Israel.
And we ask and pray all these things in Jesus' name.
Und wir bitten und beten all diese Dinge in Jesu Namen.
Amen.